Welcome, Doug. Welcome, Barb.
Hi, Scott.
Thanks, Scott.
It's very inspiring that you have chosen to come and share your first responder story here at the Invisible Wounds Dalton Associates seminar for first responders and their families. Over 30 years as a fire captain, firefighter, I guess, ended up as a captain. 6 years in corrections.
To start, a long time ago.
As well as a child youth worker dealing with a lot of crisis.
I work on a behavior team, so it's challenging.
Right off the top, let's get right into it. Barb.
Yes.
30 years with a firefighter.
Yeah.
What does a spouse of a firefighter need to hear to make life better?
Good question. I think they need to hear the realities of the career. It's fabulous. It's comforting. It's all of those great things about, as you would imagine, being a spouse of a firefighter. It's also challenging because it's not all roses and good stuff. There's a lot of bad stuff that happens along the way, and it's the things that happen along the way that affect us as a couple, Doug obviously, but us as a couple, and most importantly, the effect on the kids is something that needs to be talked about, and that's why we're here today, is because 30 years ago, there wasn't much conversation happening about this kind of stuff, but it's important that it's talked about so you know what you're facing, you know the realities of the situation, and how it affects the family so that you can make a plan moving forward so that you have a successful relationship and make it to, what are we at, 28 years?
Married 28 years.
28 years.
I know it's not easy for both of you to actually do these on-camera things or come to these events and talk. So I want to thank you both for taking the time. It probably took a lot of conversation between you to say, we want to tell our story publicly. So that takes a lot of fortitude and a lot of honor to try and help others. And thank you for doing that.
Thanks, Scott.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's fabulous what you're doing. Doug, what are these things? How were you acting that caused some of the stress?
Well, when I got on the job, I knew obviously what I'd signed up for. Like, I'm going to see some bad calls and some bad situations. But what I didn't realize was how much that was actually going to affect me subconsciously, and I was going to take it home. I tried not to take it home, but the more I fought it, it comes home anyway. And it's not so much what I would say, it's more like what I would do, right?
You didn't come home and tell the stories or tell me what happened, but I could see it in the way you were reacting. And
yeah, so I tried to avoid it, compartmentalize it, but it didn't work. So to answer your question, a lot of frustration. I get frustrated easy. Short-tempered, wasn't there emotionally sometimes for my family because I was somewhere else, and and that can take a toll on a relationship. Yeah.
Not all the time though, and that's important too. When we're talking about this stuff, it's not a doom and gloom story, because we are together, and our kids are great. It's not necessarily easy all the time, but what family is. But it's not doom and gloom all the time. But there are a lot of things that affect the family because of the experience that Doug has been through that need to be talked about.
And we just think that if people had a bit more of a heads up on what's coming, that they can plan better. We found out kind of the hard way, and we made a plan as we went, and it works pretty well. But we had no heads up. It works well.
It works well. Yeah, it works well.
I have to ask you this. One or both of you answer it. If your kids were sitting here, what would they say?
A lot.
A lot.
We've talked with our kids, and that's one of the reasons we're here, because we got input from them.
What did they say? I want to hear.
What did they say?
Well, rigid. So Mason would describe that I make a plan, and if the plan goes sideways or something happens, I get frustrated. Because making a plan and solving problems is my job at the fire hall, right? Like, my job is to solve problems, and I have to act quick, make quick decisions. And when the plan doesn't go right, apparently I get frustrated.
Yeah. Yeah, Mason made a comment just a little while ago when we were talking about this, and he said that Dad's factory reset is to responder mode. So when you think about that, he goes into work mode,
Yeah.
which is very different than, say, home mode, as we talk about, right? So,
Now, that's a real good segue into what I'm going to ask you next, Doug. You recently retired. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations to you,
Thank you.
Barb, too, for putting up for 30 years.
And now I'm home more. That's good, right?
Exactly. So the transition to retirement,
Yeah.
you know, I've heard many times and experienced it myself. It's hard to shut off.
Yeah, it's very hard to shut off.
Shut off that first responder
Mode.
reset mode, like you discussed.
Because we did it for 30 years, right? So yeah, it's hard to just shut off.
How do you do it?
Oh, I try and catch myself early, right?
Yeah.
Or Barb will give me
Yeah.
kind of a heads up that
yeah.
I'm slipping back.
Yeah. I think the responder mode is the comfortable mode, right? So
Safe.
it's a safe, right? Because you feel in control in that mode. So I know with retirement, what's helped a lot with the retirement is the sleep piece. Like the sleep deprivation, especially as the career goes on, is pretty significant and affects everything. So, yeah. So I think the sleep has been a
Sleep's
good
better
piece
now.
right
So like, yeah, sleep deprivation. We really don't give that much thought to how important sleep is. And I've only been 4 months now. It makes a big difference.
Wow. And so I know we had a little bit of a conversation earlier. You felt, and I mean, you said it here between the two of you that what do you do? There was no resources out when you started, but now there is. And you're here because of your kids, obviously,
yeah.
and you want others to get the resources. What are those resources, and where can people go and get them? I'm gonna give that one over to you, Barb, because you're the one seeing the symptoms. You're the spouse.
Yeah, I think just the conversations are happening more. So as a spouse, I'm more aware of what's available through the fire department. But I think what's been huge in the recent years is the accessibility to podcasts and information online and things like that. Now, the automatic go-to is, well, you should go talk to somebody, which is great and important. Done it myself, extremely helpful. But what goes hand in hand with that is the education piece on your own. Learning about what's happening here, learning about how the body responds to experiences that are stressful or traumatic, if you want to call them that. So, so that whole combination of learning, using the professionals' help if you need it, but also educating yourself on these situations, on that. And that's become a lot easier in the last few years with the podcasts and the just various
Books, lots of good books.
And it's okay to talk about it now.
Do you have a favorite podcast, favorite book that's actually
Yours?
helped you?
Is that what I'm supposed to say? Your
No.
podcast? I'm just teasing this guy. Favorite podcast? No, I wouldn't say there's a particular one that I would say is my favorite. Of course, with my line of work, I do a lot of research on trauma and things like that. So I find that I jump into different things for different purposes, whether it's school-based stuff and that.
Yeah.
And then I'll be reading something and go, oh, I get it, and there's those connections there when you're doing that kind of
Body
research.
keeps the score.
So, yeah, Body Keeps the Scores.
And that comes up in conversation between the two of you, obviously.
Yes, yeah. So so there's a couple books we really like Body Keeps the Score.
Yeah.
And the Body Says No. Widen the Window.
Yeah.
So these are all trauma-based books, and now we have informed trauma discussions. So that's helped a lot doing the
Excellent.
research. Yeah.
So now you're retired.
Yeah.
You're not, Barb.
I'm not retired yet. He has to figure his part out first, and then I'll figure out.
What are you gonna do, Doug? Like, you got all this extra time. You're retired. Barb's working.
Clean the house, do all the laundry.
Oh, right.
But just back to the resources quick, if we could just go there.
Yeah,
for a second.
sure.
So it's really interesting right now. Like, mental health and first responders is a big thing, and there's a lot of resources out there. But there isn't that many actually for families. So that is still something that needs a little bit more work on. There's a lot of energy and resources going into first responders, but the people at home, I think, are getting forgotten about a little bit. And the resources for them are a lot less. So I think that is something that we should try and increase, is the resources for the family.
So if somebody's watching this, especially some of our children,
Yeah.
you know, the TV's on, they're watching it, they catch a little bit of it. What's your advice to the kids?
Talk.
Okay.
Talk.
It's not your fault.
Yeah. And sometimes it's hard for the little ones to understand what's happening. Right? Conversation is important. One of the things that we've noticed and we've reflected on is when our kids were little, and if Dad was frustrated or angry or those things that were connected to the job, my go-to response would be, "Oh, he's tired." And the kids called me on that one day and said, "Why is he always tired?" But he wasn't always tired. So those conversations and having those age-appropriate conversations and the words and the context that can help them understand.
And if they don't know what's going on, kids are very smart.
Yeah.
They'll fill in the blanks.
Yeah.
And if Dad's angry, if I'm angry, they might think it's their fault.
Yeah.
And they might start to wear that. And that is not what we want either. So it's all about the communication, have the conversations early with the kids. We think we can protect our kids, but they're pretty smart. And they pick up on stuff.
I think that's a good spot to end our interview, because the kids are everything.
Kids are
Thank
everything.
you very much.
Thanks, Scott. Thank you.